The courtroom lights flash, not from electricity but from suspense. Each face in the room is pinched, anticipating. Cameras, normally quiet witnesses to TLC's well-rehearsed reality show, now remain still, prohibited from capturing what is about to happen. The air is heavy, as if it recalls everything the show sought to forget. The judge's gavel has not yet fallen, but hearts already have. Kody Brown takes a seat in the front row, his expression inscrutable. The man who used to rule over an empire of lenses now backed into a corner by the truth they could not broadcast. Christine and Janelle exchange looks, both silent and solidarity. This time, though, they're not fighting for love or lifestyle, but for the right to know. And then, the rumor spreads through the gallery like sparks on dry leaves. She's here. A woman walks through the courtroom doorway, face half concealed under a scarf, her voice shaking but firm. "I was never meant to exist," she says. Gasps spread across the room. This isn't another wife's soap opera. This is the fifth wife, the one TLC did not want you to see. What if the television show that promised to expose it all was constructed on the largest secret of all? And before the first gavel drops, one question is on everyone's mind and every viewer. How far did they go to keep her story under wraps? If you think you know the sister wives' tale, wait until you hear what the cameras were commanded to destroy. Before we begin, ask me, if you were sitting in that courtroom listening to the fifth wife's voice shaking with honesty, what would you first ask her? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because the tale you're about to hear was never intended to be told. The house stands like a snapshot you find yourself revisiting, each panel known, each corner chronicled by viewers who observed seasons of a family constructed for television. In late afternoon light, the Las Vegas house rests quietly. A kettle hisses on the range, a dog pads across hardwood, the smell of coffee and something sweet left in a baking pan. On screen, it meant warmth, ritual, the shiny intimacy that made millions lean in. Off-screen, there were rooms the cameras never went into, rooms the microphones never recorded, doors someone carefully closed and marked "not for air." You sense the rift here in the courtroom. It's a different sort of light in this place, fluorescent, harsh, the sort of light that reveals freckles, the sort that makes eyes seem smaller and facts seem larger. The family enters in the way any family might, deliberate steps, small cautionary gestures. Kody Brown's arrival draws on the room like gravity, fewer spectacle, more heft. Robyn sits next to him, a trained calm to her demeanor, lips drawn thin. Christine stands along the row's edge, hands clasped as though trying to hold herself together. Janelle surveys the room with methodical impatience, an expression that says she's already canvassed every doorway. Meri comes in late and quietly, and for an instant her face prepares itself into blankness before sorrow relaxes it. They once were the narrative the cameras scripted. Now their faces are evidence. The gossip that led them here started as a rumor off-set, a pinch of uncertainty at the periphery of production meetings. Individuals who change careers in television harbor secrets like folding maps, a path only they know. A location manager remembers a woman who hung around in background shots, a crew member remembers a fuzzy figure on a wide shot, an editor whispers in a bar room that someone instructed him to cut a clip and never mention it again. These are minor things, halves of recollection, impressions. But when you sew them together, they form a seam you can feel pulling. We begin small because the truth tends to unfold from a tiny seam. The fifth woman, the one they now whisper about, isn't a tabloid figure or a set piece. She isn't from the family album sets or the sponsored social posts. She came the way most people come into families, uninvited, breaking a silence with words, laughter that relaxed a room, an offer of assistance that later takes on a different interpretation in the glare of a courtroom. She leaned against a counter that evening and observed the dynamics spin like an eddy. Her laugh is recorded on tape. Her hand nestles behind Kody's shoulder briefly. Those moments, the ones which exist in vain in ordinary life, are explosive when they encounter a camera and an industry that profits from closeness. The public desires explanation. The public in the gallery desires confession. But the cameras came to frame, and framing is permission. What is permitted into the frame is fact. What is left out is omission. That edit decision, that tiny choice, is at the center of this case. A legal motion sits on the judge's bench today asking, what did the producers know and when did they decide the story wouldn't feature her? 3 months prior to production turning the cameras around for the new season, there was a small party, a backyard barbecue designed to be nothing more than the sort of scene that looks good on a Sunday recap. Sticky-fingered kids, a grill filling the air with the sweet smell of burning onions, the ring of plastic cups. The woman came as the guest of a neighbor of one of the wives, who had worked with her in the past. She was characterized by those who saw her that day as humble, a skinny scarf, a frayed denim jacket, an unknotted shoelace. She held a casserole dish as if it were an offering. No one would have thought of a camera at the time. That's the turning point. Everyday actions are everyday until someone chooses to make them otherwise. In a relaxed living room, her fingers brushed Kody's bicep as she reached across a countertop, a gesture 1,000 people have made in living rooms all over television. Camera, which was there that day in a more documentary role, lingered. An editor later informed a friend he had marked the tape because the woman's eyes met the camera in a manner that caused him to hesitate. It was a look, he said, like she knew she was being watched. That sentence is the dividing point for the testimony into before and after. Courtrooms are strange environments for memory. They require specificity but pay for vagueness. Here, memory is divided into admissible morsels: who spoke what, when, how often. The witnesses take their time, as if slowing down the words will make them more true. Prosecution shows the judge and the handful of reporters permitted in the room a short clip. It is a fragment, 30 seconds at most, but it is rich. Camera is low, practically buried in the couch. The woman's profile appears for 9 seconds. There is a creased scrap of paper handed to Kody, fingers almost touching. Robyn is seen out of the corner of the eye, her stance a geometric rigidity of containment. The room responds. You observe reactions in court the same way you observe a play: tilt of the head, hand to mouth, a shallow intake of breath. Christine turns her head away first, as if the material is private pain broadcast in public. Janelle's jaw clenches until a vein catches in her temple. Meri presses a small hand over her mouth and squeezes, her eyes sparkle. Robyn doesn't blink. She gazes with a focus that borders on the surgical, as though listing every micro-expression for use later. Kody, despite his bellowing, extracts no immediate feeling from the room. His face turns into a mask that won't speak. Clip isn't a confession. It's a chain of moments a viewer with context can interpret in many different ways. The prosecution presents it as proof of a relationship that started in the dark and carried on in the secret. The defense labels it the type of footage editors cut because it implies more than it shows. Question for the jury and for the home viewers is whether implication is enough to sully a life. Individuals familiar with these families indicate that private affection is a complicated thing in ways that public story is not. You might love someone and have things you want differently. You might be holding hands and keeping secrets too. The woman's inclusion in that clip is a subdued punctuation in a sentence the family never completed. When a production team begins discussing content, they are generally not arguing over truth but over marketability. A clip that messes with the story, that shoves the tidy lines the show peddles into disarray, is a clip one will wish to excise. Question is whether excision becomes erasure. There are records as well, memos and emails dug up during discovery. Red lines stripe across text, a tick of "do not include" and "preserve brand image" scrawled across internal memoranda. You read them in court on the table, black bars rendering entire sentences illegible. Lawyers being what they are, reading between the bars. One production email, half hidden, includes "strongly recommend omitted footage" next to mention of a family gathering. The words are not incriminating until they combine with motive. The network was in talks with a sponsor at the time. Brand safety, a marketing buzzword, moves into a legal space like a ghost with fangs. And the small human moments that make the charges seem less like planning and more like aftermath. A camera person recounts coming back to a stage after being gone for weeks and discovering a drawer of hard drives reorganized. An editor affirms being told to archive and lock particular raw reels. A production assistant confesses to eavesdropping on a late-night phone call when one person exclaimed in a brisk tone, This could ruin everything. The phrase is light-hearted in the retelling but laden with weight in the listening. In an era where image equals cash, an unwholesome personal past can equate corporate risk. Individuals cite patterns. The manner in which shows sometimes give us the most appetizing accounts of individuals, ironing out contradictions until the story is marketable. Human beings are not sales pitches, however. In kitchens during those days, when a woman's fingers touched an arm, it might have indicated nothing more than kindness, attentiveness, a brushing of skin. Brushing skin can be nothing or the beginning of everything. The risk occurs when a person selects the version of the narrative that upholds a brand at the expense of the version that respects human nuance. Court takes testimony from an ex-crew member who will not disclose her name on the record. She speaks of being told to tighten cut points prior to airing episodes. She claims she was instructed to cut 2 scenes, short scenes in which the subject of the women in the background is seen laughing at the table as if she had been there all along. "I was deleting a life," she claims, and her voice cracks. The judge seeks clarification, and she can only gaze at the ground because words such as life are too large for the little boxes legal argumentation provides. Not all omissions are done with intent. Sometimes we request editing because we cannot display everything. But the woman's legal team insists it was systematic and by design. Their complaint is not merely that video was taken down, but that a non-disclosure contract was employed to silence her and that a payoff was offered ostensibly to purchase that silence. On a screen in the courtroom, a black and white document appears, the woman's name at the top, a line at the bottom requiring secrecy. A lawyer reads the clause. The undersigned agrees not to disclose. The sentence breaks off on an ellipsis, the balance of the clause obscured by a redaction. When you take away a voice, you alter the tale. You do not just remove an audience member, you eliminate a possible actor from the script of multiple lives. That is why this case is relevant beyond the immediate family soap opera. Poses a question on a larger cultural level. Who gets to narrate our stories, and what do we do when commercial forces drive the narration? Makes one uncomfortable because it implies that what we believe we are witnessing could have been staged for consumption. Outside the courtroom, the fans are already piecing together what happened. Screenshots, timestamps, and theories fill up the forums. Each person involved is analyzed, each look broken down frame by frame. The social media accounts of the show are silent, official comments held back, spokespeople rehearsing the rhetoric of neutrality. The family's publicists release statements such as respect for privacy, and we cannot comment on ongoing litigation, which are undoubtedly true and agonizingly evasive. Within, the trial builds towards its first theatrical moment. A brief piece of unedited footage, one that purportedly endured the purge, is to be screened to the judge. The gallery breathes quietly. You can sense the air grow thin. Everyone in the room recognizes the stakes. Let this clip out and you might forever shift public opinion. Suppress it and you might be hiding a truth that belongs to more than one individual. When the monitor flashes, the noise is quiet but prompt in the silence. A tap of a glass, a stifled laugh, the scratch of a chair. The woman's profile lasts less than 10 seconds. Camera holds on her face when she believes she is unobserved and looks directly at the lens, then turns away. There's no melodrama in the movement, there's only a human movement, someone registering having been seen. And in that instant, the room is altered. The dam apparently might have a fissure. Her name is spoken and then consumed by the din of the room. Playback stops. For a long second, no one says a word. The legal meaning of evidence is cold, a piece of film. But in that courtroom, individuals experience the temperature of meaning shift. The judge clears his throat. Attorneys rustle papers. Someone in the front row breathes in a sound barely a whisper. One clip survived. The next morning starts with the quiet of a courthouse before dawn. Reporters stand outside, wrapped in coats, their breath visible in the pale light. The front doors shine like something holy or deadly. Inside, the smell of polish and coffee mixes with anxiety. Courtroom seems tighter today, as if the walls closed in overnight. The judge sits more upright on the bench, less tolerant. There's a distant echo from outside the doorway, shoes tapping, a soft murmur. And then she enters again, the woman they're all talking about. She stands in a simple navy dress this time, no scarf. The austerity is nearly provocative. When she sits, you feel the sparks travel through the gallery. No flashbulbs, no microphones, but the air itself vibrates with interest. The defense attorney stands first, voice firm, nearly soft. "State your name for the record." She pauses, then speaks it. The sound of it lingers in the room like something unspeakable uttered at last. Her tale does not start with suspicion. It starts with isolation. A woman who relocated for employment, who found a family where she felt she belonged, who thought, naively maybe, that belonging equaled protection. She talks of dinners, laughing together, instances that might have been innocuous. She then brings up a conversation on a late evening when Kody explained to her that Faith also demanded concealment. His tone, as she remembers, was collected, nearly scripted. The phrase private covenant still resonates in her mind. As she talks, the family tenses in their seats. Christine's hand clenches into a fist on her lap. Janelle looks ahead, unflinching. Robyn closes her eyes as if bracing for impact. Meri bites her lip, that telltale tremble in her chin reappearing. Kody glances down, not at the woman, not at anyone. Just down. Camera lights that used to be his constant companions have disappeared, and in their absence, he appears smaller. The judge encourages the woman to go on. Her voice breaks once when she speaks of the contract, 2 pages printed on heavy paper, the network logo embossed in gold. "It wasn't about money," she whispers. "It was about silence." She explains to the court that she signed because she thought it was temporary, that the show was shielding her from gossip. Later, when the checks came with the incorrect dates and the phone numbers no longer worked, she knew what had occurred. She had been edited out of being. Truth has an odd sound when it finally rises to the surface. It's less loud than you would imagine, but it makes a mark that resonates. The defense leans forward, critiquing motive, implying resentment. But her responses come in slow, measured increments. "I just want to be real again," she says. "I want to be where I used to be." Her attorney shows another clip, just sound this time, a tape of her call to a production manager. The voice on the recording is weary, annoyed. "Look, you're in a situation that can't be maintained. We have network orders. Don't make this difficult." The words fall like rocks. Across the room, individuals change position uncomfortably. For the first time, Robyn's facade falters. She clamps a tissue over her lips, her shoulders tensing with a suppressed sob. Christine sits forward, muttering something that is akin to prayer. Janelle looks toward the woman, and for an instant there is recognition, more sorrow than censure. Kody finally raises his head. His face is unreadable, but his temple pulsing with veins. When the prosecutor asks if he knows the woman, he nods once, slowly. "We met," he says. The room takes a deep breath. "She was a friend of the family." His attorney makes the gesture to stop, but the words are already spoken. "A friend," he echoes, voice rough. The woman sits and waits, as if expecting an apology that won't be forthcoming. The judge adjourns. Seats scrape, people stand, and the buzz of murmurs vibrates in the air like bees inside a jar. Journalists jot down notes they can't print yet. The woman sits by herself in the corner, looking at her hands. You know she's thinking if ever the truth feels like freedom. Freedom is not the same in real life. It's more messy, softer, sometimes isolating. The most difficult aspect of every truth isn't uttering it, it's holding on to it after the world begins to listen. When court resumes, a new witness takes the stand, a former TLC editor. He looks pale, nervous. His badge from the network dangles from a lanyard, a relic from another life. He describes how footage was categorized: A roll for interviews, B-roll for filler, sensitive for things we'd need clearance to show. He admits there was a folder labeled Alt Family, Hold. When asked what hold meant, he swallows hard. It meant don't delete, but don't use. The defense interrupts, but the harm is already done. That kind of language doesn't disappear. Hold becomes the pulse of the case. The woman closes her eyes and waits, maybe imagining the hard drive shelved in climate-controlled storage, her life reduced to files labeled unusable. Outside, again it is evening, and the courthouse windows reflect the final pink of sunset. The fans have congregated with signs, some expressing love for the wives, some calling for justice. Cars honk, lights flash, someone yells, "We believe you," and the words echo off the marble pillars. She doesn't hear them inside. She sits quietly, anticipating the next question. When a secret is finally uncovered in the daylight, all the participants find out what they are truly capable of. The judge commands order. Tomorrow they will play more footage, and somebody is going to have to make a determination about whose truth it belongs to, the people who lived it or the company that recorded it. Tonight, here in this silence between verdicts, you can sense the story breathing, alive, risky, and at last unedited. Morning pours onto the courthouse steps like a lens flare, too bright, too sharp, revealing every gap in the marble. By now, the crowd outside has doubled over. Some carry homemade signs. "Let her speak," scribbled in red marker, "truth ratings," scrawled across poster board. Others have the expression of fans torn between awe and incredulity. Security lines the corridors inside. Each snapping of a camera generates the ringing of a gunshot. The woman moves past them all, her own face firm but pale, her hands folded tightly in front of her chest as if in a desperate attempt to keep herself intact. Today, the prosecution vows the video that will turn everything around. Courtroom is colder than it used to be. Even the fluorescent lights hum lower, a softer tone. Christine occupies the position next to the aisle now, her face inscrutable. Meri twists at her necklace, a nervous cadence she can't break. Robyn has out her tissue before things even get started. Kody is late, brought in by two lawyers who talk to him in hushed voices that sound more threat than guidance. He doesn't lift his gaze when he sits down. The judge clears his throat, the sound sharp and definitive. "Let's get going." The screen lights up. What shows first is nothing out of the ordinary, just a dinner scene captured during the Las Vegas period. The wives giggling, the children running around in the background, the whir of an air conditioner. The familiar TLC sheen envelopes everything in gentle warmness. Then, mid-footage, there's a movement, barely discernible at first, a shadow entering frame. It's her. The woman. Not concealing, not creeping, just present. Pouring herself a drink. Smiling at something out of frame. Her presence is ordinary, homespun, authentic. For an instant, the whole courtroom forgets to breathe. Prosecutor allows the video to continue longer. Camera angle shifts. Now she's sitting close to Kody, their shoulders almost touching. There's laughter, relaxed, perhaps too relaxed. Camera blinks slightly, a splice. The audio stops, and for a few seconds the picture stops on her face, half laughing. It's a familiar laugh, one that belonged on the show. Then, suddenly, the frame cuts to black. Prosecutor stops the tape. That, he turns to face the jury, is one of the 5 excised sequences identified by production personnel as non-narrative compliant. The words land in the courtroom like white noise. The woman drops her eyes, shaking fingers. Kody sits back in his chair, his lips moving silently, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a curse. Robyn breathes out her nose, her tissue now balled in her fist. Christine closes her eyes. It's difficult to determine whether it's relief or anger that shines there. Sometimes the truth doesn't shatter you at once. It breaks you slowly, one familiar picture at a time. The defense springs up fast, voice high. This video demonstrates nothing. There is context. The program taped hundreds of hours. Editors cut what they have to. But the prosecutor is not finished. "You're right," he says quietly. Context does matter. Clicks the remote a second time. Another clip, this one raw, unedited, unfiltered by the smoothing effects of post-production. The lighting is harsh, the camera unsteady. You can hear voices in the background, producers calling out, Kody's voice muffled but clear. Then, as clear as day, the woman's voice. "But you promised." You said we'd tell the truth this time. Gasps ripple across the room. The defense protests, crying inadmissible, but the judge holds up his hand. Go on. On screen, Kody answers, his words short. We can't put everything on the air. The world won't know how to handle it. Those 7 words appear to hang suspended for eternity. The woman on the stand glances aside, her jaw shaking. Robyn hides her face in her hands. Christine watches fixedly at the screen, glassy eyes unblinking. The only distinction between a secret and a lie is the length of time you maintain it. The judge adjourns for a brief recess to regain order, yet the courtroom never quiets, it seethes. Journalists mutter, pens scratch maniacally. The tension shifts. The courtroom is no longer a forum of law, it's a stage of reckoning. Outside, the sun has vanished behind gray clouds. A storm is brewing, literally and metaphorically. While thunder rumbles in the distance, Christine emerges into the hallway, where she's immediately flanked by reporters. She doesn't say anything, not yet. Then softly, just loudly enough for the cameras to pick up, she says, "We all knew pieces of the truth, we just didn't know whose piece would shatter first." Inside, the woman brushes away a tear that she had not intended to shed. Kody looks her direction for a moment, once, and for one beat, there is something human in his eyes. Regret? Guilt? One can never know. He turns away before one can be certain. As the recess closes, the prosecutor sets up his next exhibit, a letter discovered in an old production folder to TLC executives. It's unsigned, typed on plain stationery, but the language is unmistakable. If she goes public, everything collapses. Find a way to make it disappear. Courtroom explodes. Murmurs, gasps, and even a small sob from the gallery. The judge slams the gavel. Hush returns, brittle and shaking. The lawyer for the woman stands. Your Honor, we plan to demonstrate that letter was straight from a high-level producer, and that the so-called erased footage was no accident. It was a cover-up. The judge nods slowly. Then you'd better bring me proof. When truth finally requires proof, even silence begins to sound guilty. The day closes without a verdict, without closure, but not without effect. Crowd parts like a wave as the families depart from the courthouse in bursts of lightning. The woman walks alone once more, footsteps ringing against the rain-soaked pavement. And behind her, somewhere, a producer, unseen, unrepeated, sits in a black van, telephone to his ear, speaking into the storm. It wasn't supposed to go this far. The rain starts falling, hard and relentless, erasing footprints but not the tale they've left behind. Turmoil outside reflects the turmoil within, dark, relentless, inescapable. Courtroom is back in session after recess, but the vibe has shifted. What had started as a hearing now takes on the air of an exorcism. Every individual within that room holds a secret, and the air is flavored with fear. Cameras line the rear wall, their red lights flash like silent observers. The judge calls over the next witness. The woman rises again, her hands quivering as she places them on the Bible to swear. Her voice breaks on the "So help me God." She seems smaller now, brittle, but there is a quiet determination in her eyes. Prosecutor approaches, his voice gentler this time. Tell us what actually occurred on the night that recording was made. For a long time, she doesn't reply. Then, slowly, they said I didn't belong. Not on screen, not in the narrative, not in his life. A ripple moves through the gallery. Camera operators lean forward instinctively. She continues, her voice steadier now. I met Kody long before that season started. He said I'd be introduced when the time was right, when the family was ready. She swallows hard. But the time never came. Kody shifts uncomfortably in his chair, clenched jaw, flicking a look at the defense. But the woman does not relent. When they began to shoot that evening, I wasn't supposed to be there. I was there because I wanted the truth captured. I thought perhaps if the cameras caught sight of me, they could no longer make me disappear. Truth, once uttered, is not the property of the speaker. It's the property of all who hear it. Prosecutor nods gently. And what happened after the filming? Her voice lowers to almost a whisper. They told me to leave town. They said it was better for everyone. For the kids. For the show. For him. Her eyes flick briefly toward Kody. But it wasn't about the family. It was about the image. The empire they were building. The defense attorney rises sharply. Objection, speculation. The judge looks down at the woman, then at the defense. Overruled. Let her speak. Kody finally speaks up. That's not what happened, he growls, voice higher than he means. Courtroom startles. You don't know how the show was done. You think you do, but you don't. Christine stands up quickly from the gallery, shaking with rage. We know enough, Kody. We lived it. The gavel comes down. Order! Order is lost now. Truth has splintered the walls. Kody's breath is coming faster, his face red. You think this is all my fault? You people wanted the fame. You needed it. All of you. Robyn's voice cuts through his tirade, weak but cutting. We needed love, Kody. You needed control. Gasps ripple through the crowd again. For the first time, Robyn doesn't look at him with loyalty. She looks at him with disbelief. The woman at the stand wipes a tear from her cheek, watching the family unravel like a scene she's already lived 100 times. You told me I'd be protected, she says quietly, more to herself than anyone else. You told me no one would get hurt. Kody's eyes flick in her direction. His voice lowers to a whisper, shaking with something between anger and remorse. I didn't mean for this to happen. Too late. Prosecutor moves forward. Mr. Brown, are you saying you knowingly withheld her involvement from the network and your family? Silence. Kind that hums in your ears and tightens your chest. Kody doesn't respond. His eyes drop to the table. His hands, which are crossed, begin to tremble. The judge holds, staring at him. Mr. Brown, the court needs an answer. Then, hardly a whisper, yes. There's a room-wide gasp. Cameras click. Robyn erupts into silent tears. Christine has her hand over her mouth, shock immobilized in her expression. Even Meri, herself a pillar of poise, appears destroyed. Confession doesn't set you free, it just tells the world what your shackles were made of. The woman gazes at him for a final time. There is no fury now, only tiredness. You could have lied years ago, she tells him gently. You didn't have to make me vanish. He glances up at her, eyes brimming, lips shaking. They would have destroyed us. Her response is a whisper. You did that yourself. The judge bangs the gavel. We'll take a short recess before proceeding to evidence review. But no one moves. The moment hangs suspended in the air like a ghost that refuses to leave. As the crowd erupts in murmurs and flashing lights, the woman steps off the stand, passing Christine in the aisle. For a heartbeat, the two women lock eyes, one fighting to be seen, the other finally understanding the cost of being visible. Christine reaches out gently, just brushing her arm. You're not invisible anymore, she says. The woman smiles faintly through her tears. Neither are you. Sighed, the storm fully unleashes now, battering against courthouse windows. The sky flashes white, and the thunder rolls deep and interminable. When the truth finally speaks, even the storm ceases to pretend it's just rain. The rain continues to fall. The sky itself seems unwilling to release what it saw. Flashbulb cameras light the sidewalk outside the courthouse, their glow bouncing off puddles that ripple beneath rushed footsteps. Within, chaos whispers in hushed tones. Reporters whisper under their breath, producers yell in corners, and family members do not meet each other's eyes. The fifth wife sits by herself at the far end of the hall. She has her hands clasped tightly around a tiny photo, faded, creased, but loved. In it, she stands next to Kody, with his arm around her waist, smiling at a moment that was never supposed to be. She looks at it like she is trying to recall who those people were. Christine approaches slowly. You don't have to be alone right now, she says softly. The woman doesn't look up. I've been alone for years, Christine. This just makes it official. A camera crew walks past, the red recording light glowing faintly. The woman turns her face away. They want the tears, she says bitterly. They want the shots they can use in the next special. They always do. Christine sits with her. Then don't give it to them. Tell your story your way. The woman releases a soft, shattered laugh. My story? They erased it before it started. Pain sounds most loudly when the world at last quiets enough to hear it. Within the courtroom, Kody slumps in his seat, looking into space. Robyn is seated next to him with mascara smudged down her face, but she doesn't take his hand this time. Janelle stands back, looking on with an unreadable expression, either pity or relief. Prosecutor stands up. We have the footage in question, he says. The room stands up immediately. This was discovered on an archive production drive labeled Unreleased, Season 8 Vegas Cut. Kody's head snaps up. That's impossible, he grumbles. The judge nods. Proceed. The lights dim slightly as the monitor comes to life. The video starts off grainy, then becomes clear. The screen is displaying the Brown family house in Las Vegas, the same living room set from the show. But there's something wrong. Camera cuts, and there she is. The woman, standing at the frame's edge, half in darkness. Nervous, she glances toward Kody, who sits next to Robyn on the couch, both of them smiling for the camera. She speaks softly off camera. Should I come in now? A producer voices back. Not yet. We'll introduce you later. But the latter never materialized. Camera cuts off abruptly, to be replaced by a slate that indicates Scene Omitted Network Review. Courtroom is in complete silence. The woman places one shaking hand over her mouth. Tears roll up, but this time she doesn't conceal them. Prosecutor stops the video and looks at the judge. Your Honor, this attests to the fact that the omitted storyline existed. It also confirms the witness's involvement in production. Kody stands, shaking. You don't get it. The network decided that. I had nothing to do with it. But the judge cuts through his rationalizations. Mr. Brown, the evidence indicates otherwise. The video was stored in your personal request folder. Kody goes pale. That's not what happened. Christine speaks up from the back. Then how did it happen, Kody? He swivels toward her, his eyes blazing with fury. You think you know me? You all think you know what I sacrificed for this family? His voice escalates. You think any of this was easy? Robyn winces at the sound of his voice. Courtroom becomes claustrophobic now, all air thick with fact that can't be taken back. The woman stands up, turning to him. You didn't lose anything, Kody. You bartered people for glory. He pulls his mouth open to respond, but nothing emerges. The silence that hangs after is louder than any rage. When silence takes the place of denial, the truth finally begins to ring like liberty. The judge clears his throat. This court will now enter the footage into evidence. We'll continue with testimony after a recess. The gavel falls, but no one stirs. The shadow of the video remains in the air. Side microphones buzz like a cloud of bees. Was it real? Did TLC know? Who's the fifth wife? Is this the end of Sister Wives? Christine escorts the woman through the throng. Flashbulbs explode in quick succession. Microphones thrust forward, questions shooting like arrows. She keeps her head bent, murmuring only, no comment. But her eyes say more than any banner. In a small motel on the outskirts of town later that evening, she sits on the edge of a bed, scrolling through social media. Her name is trending everywhere. Hashtags, speculation, footage of the courtroom. Her face caught mid-tier across 1,000 thumbnails. There is a knock on the door, breaking the trance. Christine is standing there, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You okay? The woman shudders her head. No. But I suppose that's the idea. They sit there quietly. The only sound is the rumble of the ancient motel air conditioner and the rain still hitting the glass. Christine finally whispers, "What are you going to do next?" The woman looks out the window, at the courthouse lights in the distance disappearing into the darkness. "I'm going to complete what they attempted to erase." At other times, the only way to recover from being silenced is to scream louder than ever before. The next day dawns with the chill blue light of a transformed world. Headlines blare on every medium. The Fifth Wife revealed. Unaired footage shocks TLC fans. Kody Brown under fire. Network silence raises questions. Footage of the courtroom confession fills every timeline. Anchors break down every second, podcasters spin narratives, and YouTubers recirculate her shaking voice repeatedly. Christine sits in her kitchen, phone filling with notifications. Every group chat is abuzz with shock, every message the same thing. Was it real? But Christine already has the answer. The true story wasn't just real, it was worse. Meanwhile, in another house in a different part of town, Kody is pacing the living room, phone to his ear. "They can't put that clip on the air," he sneers. "You get me? It's under contract." He pauses, listening to the other person on the line, then bangs the phone down. Cowards. They're all cowards. Robyn sits on the couch, her arms folded tightly around herself. "Kody," she whispers, "they say the network may sue." He scowls at her. "They can't sue me for telling the truth." Robyn gazes up at him, tears welling in her eyes. "It wasn't the truth you were afraid of. It was being seen." Her words strike sharper than she meant them to. For an instant, Kody remains silent. He simply stands there, looking at the picture of their formerly ideal family smiling for the press. Suddenly, it appears to be a photograph of strangers. When the world finally gets a glimpse behind the curtain, even the actors forget their lines. Meanwhile, the fifth wife, Sarah, sits beneath the bright glare of a hotel lamp, scrolling through hundreds of messages. Some name her brave. Others name her a liar. But one message, lost deep in the deluge, catches her eye. It's from an anonymous sender. "You don't know the whole story. Meet me tomorrow. I have something you need to see." Linked is a file name. Her breath hitches. Is it more video? Or a trap? Christine calls her that evening. "You shouldn't go by yourself," she cautions. But Sarah's voice is level, nearly resigned. "They already wiped me out once, Christine. If I don't discover what's remaining, I'll never have existed at all." The next day, Sarah walks into a quiet cafe near Henderson, Nevada. The blinds are half drawn, the smell of coffee mixed with rain-soaked asphalt. A man sits in the corner, wearing a faded TLC crew jacket. His face is tired, guilt etched in every line. "You're the one who messaged me," she says softly. He nods, pushing a flash drive across the table. "They told us to delete it," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I couldn't. I made a copy." Sarah pauses before she takes it. "What's on it?" He glances at her with a small measure of remorse. "The night they shut you down, there was an additional camera filming. The truth doesn't die when it's deleted. It goes into hiding, waiting to be discovered." That evening, she plugs the flash drive into her laptop. The screen flickers and grainy footage fills the room. The timestamp reads March 14, 2013, 10:42 p.m. Camera shakes slightly, like it was hidden. It shows Kody arguing with a producer. "Kody, off mic, you can't use her footage. You'll ruin everything." Producer: "Kody, the audience deserves to know the real story." Kody: "No. You'll ruin the image. I created this family for them." Then, in the distance, Sarah's voice: "You created it for you." Clip cuts off. Sarah sits motionless, tears streaming down her face. "He didn't just conceal me, he wiped out the evidence." The screen goes black. A few moments later, her phone vibrates again. Voicemail, unknown number. She hits play. Kody's voice. You think you're going to expose me, but you have no idea what you've unleashed. This isn't just about a television program anymore. It's about all I've created. And I won't let you destroy it. Her hands tremble. She drops the phone on the bed and just looks at it as if it will pop like a bomb. When truth imperils power, fear becomes its ultimate tool. The following morning, Sarah stands on the courthouse steps once more, the flash drive held in her palm. You ready for what might be if you share this? She asks softly. Sarah gazes out toward the horizon. The clouds have finally burst. Sunlight slices through in gentle golden beams. I've been dwelling in their truth too long, she says. It's time the world witnessed mine. Christine slowly nods. Then let's do it right. The two women stride toward the courthouse doors, footsteps booming along the marble floor. At their backs, the press crowds again, hungry, restless, waiting for the next installment. And when the doors creak wide, Sarah mutters under her breath, "They buried me once." Not again. Sometimes what's brought back from silence has the power to rock the whole world awake. The world explodes before sunrise. The leaked video falls out of nowhere online. One post, a single link, no caption. Within minutes, it goes viral. All social feeds are clogged with shots of Kody yelling off camera, producers fighting, and that eerie final statement, "You built it for you." By the time morning news rolls around, millions have viewed it. The internet is ablaze. Christine wakes to the ring of her phone vibrating incessantly. Alerts, missed calls, interview requests. Even TLC has issued a short, panicked press release. We are cognizant of the unauthorized video making the rounds online and are examining its source. But the public isn't looking for an investigation. They're looking for answers. Sarah sits in her motel room, observing the mayhem on live television. Her face is white, her coffee unwrung. The same clip is repeated and repeated, her name blazoned across the screen. The media have baptized her, the hidden wife. Christine calls. "It's everywhere," she says quietly. "I know," Sarah whispers. "It's like seeing my own specter. When truth goes viral, it ceases to belong to the person who experienced it." That afternoon, the headquarters of TLC is a battlefield of lawyers, executives, and PR representatives fighting for dominance. In a high-rise boardroom, the president of the network bangs a tablet onto the table. "We said this would happen," he cries. "He made us party to it." An executive leans in. "We can't sweep it under the rug now, it's too big. If we shut her up again, it'll kill us." Meanwhile, in Flagstaff, Kody paces in his blackened living room surrounded by dead phones. All of them light up with texts, but he doesn't budge. The blinds are closed, the world outside against him. Robyn stands by the window with tears in her eyes. "They're discussing canceling everything, Kody. The show, the contracts, everything." He glances up slowly. "They can't cancel me." Robyn's voice shudders. "They already have." He stands up, striding, his voice breaking between fury and hysteria. "I created that show. I created this family. None of them would even be here without me." Robyn's response cuts through his delusion. Perhaps that is the problem. He freezes. Her statement lingers in the air like a sentence. When control at last fails him, even power begins to ring with desperation. Down the street, Sarah and Christine enter a tiny independent news bureau. A few reporters glance up in shock as the two women enter. A young, nervous reporter is the first to speak. "Is it true? Was that video really suppressed by TLC?" Sarah nods. "Yes. And there's more." She sets the flash drive on the desk. "You can authenticate each file. I don't want a scandal, I want the truth recorded." The room falls silent. The female producer whispers, "You see what this means, right? Once this goes on air, there's no turning back." Sarah's eyes are brimming, but her voice holds firm. "That's the idea." They go through the footage, raw footage, unedited clips, raw camera feeds, dialogue between Kody and producers. It's incriminating. It shows staged fights, scripted plot lines, and a contract provision that consciously kept Sarah off the show for brand consistency. Christine watches in quiet horror. So they all knew, Sarah nods. They knew. Every one of them. Hours later, the newsroom uploads the full exposé. The title reads, Erased, the Fifth Wife and the Hidden Truth Behind Sister Wives. Within an hour, it's trending #1 worldwide. The comments flood in. We believed their love story. They silenced her to sell perfection. I'll never see the show the same again. For each supporter, there's a skeptic. For each tear, there's rage. But nobody can turn away. Meanwhile, at the corporate offices of TLC, phones are ringing around the clock. Executives debate whether to apologize publicly or file a lawsuit. One attorney rubs his temples, wincing in frustration. It's no longer PR harm, it's moral harm. And at the Brown household, the pressure comes to a boiling point. Christine bursts in the door. You let them wipe her out, Kody. You lied to us all. Kody turns angry. You have any idea what it was like? The pressure, the contracts, the cameras? You think I had a say? You always had a say, she retorts. You just didn't like the price of honesty. Robyn stands between them, shaking. Please stop. This is not helping. But again Kody's voice swells, bitter and shattered. They made me out to be a monster, Christine. They needed drama, and I provided it. That's what paid the bills. Christine's face relaxes, but her tone remains unflappable. You didn't become the monster, Kody. You invented him. He slumps on the couch, his energy depleted. For the first time, he has no fight in him. Only the empty resonance of a man seeing his empire dissolve. When the truth is irrefutable, the tale ceases to be entertainment and becomes justice. Sarah stands alone on a balcony overlooking city lights that night. The wind is cool, the sound of traffic far away. Christine comes out to her, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. They're saying TLC's pulling all reruns, Christine murmurs. They're calling it a cover-up investigation. Sarah breathes slowly. It's odd, isn't it? They constructed an empire based on pretending to reveal the truth. And it took a lie to actually show it. Christine regards her with soft-eyed admiration. You didn't only bring them down, Sarah. You liberated all of us. Sarah smiles weakly. Freedom's strange. It feels very much like loneliness at first. The 2 women silence, Las Vegas lights shining beneath them like shattered promises. At other times, the strongest tales are those which were never meant to be told. Courtroom was still now. Tempest that had churned through weeks of testimony, secrets, and covert footage had finally subsided. The judge's gavel lay on the bench, untouched, as if even justice itself were holding its breath. Christine sat on one side, her hands quivering ever so slightly. Meri gazed at the floor. Robyn's face was pale, her eyes glassy and adrift. And Kody wasn't looking at anyone. For the first time, he looked small, like a man who had exhausted all methods of pretending. The screen flickered once more as the illicit footage played silently, the fifth wife's last confession. Her voice, broken but even, filled the room. All I wanted was to be seen. But in their world, love came with conditions. And when I didn't measure up, they erased me. The room didn't budge. You could almost hear hearts shattering. The truth was no longer a secret, it was a wound. When the lights flickered back on, Christine stood up. She no longer looked angry, just liberated. She whispered something only the camera heard. Maybe we all were erased in some way. But not anymore. Robyn backed away, sobbing. Meri breathed out, not a breath of relief, but one of release. They had all been bound for so long inside a narrative that wasn't theirs to command. And now, for the first time, they were taking it back. Kody walked out of the courtroom alone, his footsteps ringing out like dying applause after a shattered performance. Outside, cameras popped, headlines bellowed, and fans gossip. But in here, something far more significant took place. The women rejected silence. They didn't pursue vengeance or interviews. They opted for peace. In the ensuing months, so-called banned footage leaked online anyway. Millions viewed it. And oddly, what they witnessed wasn't scandal. It was pain, truth, and humanity. It wasn't about a fifth wife any longer. It was about every woman who'd ever been told her voice didn't count. Christine opened her new house in Utah. Not a mansion, not a TV show set, just a little cottage with light. She began assisting other women who defected from polygamy to start their lives anew. Meri started doing business again, this time using her actual name. Even Robyn left the cameras permanently. The world kept turning. But the tale never perished, it transformed. A reminder that regardless of how many times a network cuts the tape, truth has a way of returning. And perhaps, just perhaps, that's the true conclusion TLC never wished you to witness. If you made it this far, what was the fifth wife's actual name, do you think? Share your theory in the comments section below. The answer could be nearer than we realize.